Awesome.
Hey
Awesome.
guys, hopefully you know me. I'm Zap, program manager at the Entrepreneur Center, managing membership with these great events as well as Renew Nashville. I'm so stoked today that we have Monchier coming to speak about branding. She is an expert, she is a hustler, and she is also an EC advisor. So if you want to talk to her more, she is someone who has served EC entrepreneurs for many, many years and has worked with so many incredible brands around Nashville. We're excited to have her here. The toughest part about these virtual workshops is that we can't give a round of applause, but just know that the EC community is very enthusiastic and very good at clapping. Oh, thank you for the virtual clap, Clark. Anyways, I will hand it off to you.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to see that we got some folks on the day and that folks are, you know, ready to get back to it. And that's what Renew Nashville is going to make sure we do here in Nashville, that our businesses get back to the status of being the it city, it factor that it was prior to the tornadoes, prior to this great year that we've enjoyed. Yeah, we're not going to give it any more negativity. So I am on Cherie Holmes Jones. I own Mojo Marketing and PR here in Nashville, Tennessee. Like Hallie said, I am an EC advisor. I've admired EC for a while, and I have just met some great people and helped some great people over the last 6 or 7 years with their businesses. So much so that they come back to be potential customers of Mojo once they've grown 4 or 5 years later, and that's always good. But at minimum, at least getting them over the hump that's sometimes very trying, which is getting brand market share, getting brand credibility, getting seen, actually getting a return on their growth for all of the effort that they do, if that's posting on social media, if that's doing PR, if that's just, dwelling in the hot spot like a East Nashville or 12 South and really trying to grow their business. So what I'm going to do is kind of get some nuts and bolts of all of this. Building brand credibility is something I think we skip over a lot. We do the business plan, we have the idea, we get our partners, we get some funding, we come up with a plan, right? And then we completely forget that the plan is like ongoing. We reference our business plan all the time, or we reference our marketing plan all the time. But the plan to build brand credibility, which is like that street cred, brand cred, is like a must. And so we are all back on the same playing field, no matter if you pivoted or you're not, because guess what? Where you live is a big part of your credibility. Where your business thrives is a big part of your credibility. And so understanding that you could be doing well as a business, but your market's not doing well, that also affects how much business you get. You may survive and come out being a better business because of it, but sustainable long term brand credibility is something that you got to keep up. We're seeing it with all the issues of the world that has come out in this pandemic, that you can have bad hamburgers one day and have a whole cancel culture on you. You know what I mean? So brand credibility is about sustaining yourself through all of that. It used to be that it was the optics and a memorable commercial and just general recognition of the brand, like being able to say fries and it's McDonald's fries, or Kleenex and it's tissue. Being able to really define your brand out of the muck, right? Now it's different. Representation is everything. Who represents your brand, who you represent, and all of that. Why is that important? Not because of any political world issues, but just because people care about what matters to them more than ever now. The pandemic has brought that out. So you want to be able to keep your credibility as sustainable as possible amid all of that. So how do we do it? Representation. Do you represent everybody? That's the only way to get away from being defined any different and being believable, is do you represent everybody? So I ask the question a lot. I tell people, yeah, you need to make sure you got some brand credit. Like, have you done some steps to really define yourself in this city, but in the city's DNA, right? Like, how believable is your brand? Tomorrow, can you go outside and make 100 people purchase your product? That's a definition that helps you define how believable your brand is. Not because your sales are low. My thing is, how big is your influence? How much work have you done in your market to make that happen? Could you host a pop-up and actually draw your customers in, even in a pandemic? How believable is your CEO? Why is that relevant? A lot of people need to know who run the company. Steve Jobs did that. Blame it on him. Everybody wants to know who runs a company now, who is the decision maker, who's guiding the culture. And so it's important to not so much promote the CEO and put his verbiage out there 24/7, but making sure that he represents what the city represents or what your audience represents. Like, you don't want a CEO who hates baseball and he runs a baseball field. You know what I mean? We want him to love baseball just like he wants us to love baseball, correct? Your product, is it believable? Is the packaging, organic, and you're selling organic products? Like, all of those things are key to brand credibility. You want to say what you mean and mean what you say from this day forward when you're trying to build brand, not just in this city, but across the United States because of our climate. Okay. And we're going to do questions at the end. I am going to open up for that. Okay. And then your value. Like, what can you prove about your brand? Like, we don't need to mince words anymore. Let's all stay authentic. Let's all stay very rough. If it's your CEO who articulates the brand the best, let them do it. If it's the secretary that articulates the brand the best, let that person do it. Why? Because people need to understand the value at the gate, because they know what matters more to them more than ever now. And this is ever changing. Let's go ahead and let's get it out. What's the benefits? Show me your value. All righty. I said two things. We talked about brand credibility, but I want to define before we get into some tactics and just some thought process. Understanding what brand credibility is really about being believable. Like, do we believe you? Do you represent what you say you are? And that makes a decision if I purchase from you. But now there's another factor to that. They're bookended. You got brand cred, but then you have market share. Why is market share even relevant? Market share is relevant because that's how the big brands play the game. And we just end up, if you're not a big brand, Fortune 500 meaning, you end up falling in and getting whatever's left. But really, on a local level, you should be playing the market share game. So it's a portion of the market. Let me move this around. This is in you guys' way. It's a portion of the market that's controlled. This is how it's defined by a particular company or product. I, in my career, worked in the advertising agency and world for a period of time. And one of the accounts I worked on was Domino's. It was so competitive, the pizza industry, that we put out market share reports at least every 2 weeks, but no less than a month. They cared about what Papa John's and Pizza Hut and even Little Caesars spent on their media, how they advertise, and how much they are, produced from a tax bracket standpoint each month. Why? Because it's a market that anybody can make a choice. Folks were not super loyal at that point. They were still defining it. So you say to yourself, I make tires, but down the street, Bridgestone makes tires. How can I get my market share up? Because I know they've been here longer, so they're going to have the bigger market share. But how can I get a bigger piece of that pie? And that's what market share is. So this is not to make your competition your marketing strategy. Just this is to make sure that you have a goal to get to when getting back to normal, when getting renewed. So how much of your market share do you want? You're here in Nashville. Let's just look at Nashville from a perspective. You're here in Nashville. You sell ice cream. There's 12 other ice cream shops within the Middle Tennessee area. How much do you want to grab their attention? There's ways to do that, to grab the Nashvillians' attentions, and there's ways to do that, but it has to be very meticulous around advertising, around brand awareness, around community involvement, and being able to be seen and known as a partner in the community. And then the product has to be believable. The product has to have brand credibility. So now that we know what market share is, let's go into the next thing. Let's see, why am I not moving? There we go. So I want to keep it simple. We can go on and on. This brand credibility is something that you're going to forever be building. Who knew that every brand in the world would have to rebuild or start over to an extent to show that they are believable? No matter if you were Reebok, or if you were James Beard Foundation, or if you're Nike, everybody had to reiterate how they cared about their consumer and why they cared about their consumer and what they've been doing to be a part of the consumer's world beyond selling to their consumer. Everyone across the world has had to do that. But we can go on and on about the strategies they did to do so, to get themselves back to that, to the status of selling at the capacity we're selling or even more. I didn't want to give you guys 5,000 things to come up with, but I said, what's the 4 things that you must copy? And these are the 4 things. Brand strategy is a must. Don't let people talk you into a 1-year marketing plan. If somebody's doing a 1-year marketing plan in a pandemic, they're selling you crap, because we don't know what's happening in December. So we cannot have a plan that we follow come March that was based on today. Why? Because we don't know what's coming in December. So don't get yourself too far out in the game, which is contrary to what the world has been doing in the marketing space for the last 10, 50 years. We've always planned in advance, 6 months in advance, so that we would work, or sometimes years in advance, so that we'll be ready to roll out our campaigns. Now we're saying, get a strategy together, stick to that strategy, but keep it tight so that you're easily and ready to pivot. So that's a brand move that we definitely want to keep in our pocket. Branded content, I mean, we're all at home, right? No matter if the offices are opening back up, restaurants are opening back up, we are all at home. So being on that social media is going to be key, and having branded content on that social media that actually is beyond the flat posts is a must. You know, they've been telling us for years, video gets more views than any static post. It's not even about video anymore. Like, you need to really have a whole conversation plan for your consumer every week. How simple is that? Like, I want to talk to my best friend, my consumer, and I want to have a whole conversation with her. I want to tell her everything about what. That's how you think about your branded content. Oh, but let me show her in a video, or let me show him through in a pop-up event, and then we'll video it and send it back to him. You have to really build relationships through your branded content, and so it's super important. Community partnerships, impact. If you're not doing it as a business, as a brand, you will not be sustainable. So understand that community partnerships is a direct driver to showing impact in your city, to being a part of this It City vibe, right? And so that doesn't mean you partner with Second Harvest tomorrow and you're having drop-off points for all the Christmas gifts, and you have this big activation that has nothing to do with your business model. No, that means you find things that matter to your brand and your consumer and your staff, and you connect them by any means necessary. Why? Because we're all in need of help right now, no matter who we are. We're all looking to be renewed. So it's a perfect time to team up and try to do more together. So community partnerships is going to be important part of a brand plan moving forward. A marketing plan, a business plan. I think, we've done business plans for the last 100 years, and it was always important to have a marketing effort in there, right? I promise you, moving forward, it's going to be just as important to have a social impact, community partnership component of your business plan. And then the last thing is sustainable content, social engagement, right? Like, branded content is the thing that you curate. It's the thing that you cultivate, right? That you are helping to tell your story back to back. But sustainable social engagement is different. It's saying, I'm here in this market and I want everybody to know. If you're in Nashville and you have a storefront and you post nothing about Nashville on a daily basis or a weekly basis, are you in Nashville, right? Ask yourself, how sustainable are you to your market? That word sustainable is probably going to be the word we'll hear more and more. We've heard pandemic, that's going to be ran out, right? Hopefully it's over hopefully it's over forever in the next 6 months. But sustainable is what every business is looking for. If you are a shoe company, ice cream shop, or just look, what do you have? A podcast marketing company, you need to be sustainable, and you need to find ways to be sustainable. We cannot do this over again when another pandemic comes. We're all getting ready to be ready for anything in the future. And then also something that doesn't disrupt our connection with people. So disruptors, everybody loves that word. Like, how do you disrupt the industry? Disrupting the industry is great. Disrupting our relationship with people is our problem right now. And the reason why we all are literally closed off to each other and not connecting. So we want to make sure that we're sustainable social engagement, something that's not disconnecting us. So I said all that to say, these are the 4 brand moves, but you'll be surprised that the most valuable brands by consumers are not the top 10 brands on the Fortune 500. The top three are like Walmart and Exxon on the Fortune 500 based on their billings and how much money they make, right? But the most valuable brands are Nike, Apple. What's the difference? Like, why is these guys the most valuable, but the ones that are making the most money and spending the most money and doing the most are completely different? Why? Because brand credibility matters more than how much money they make. The word Fortune 500 is even branded, right? But we as a consumer and the people in this domestic US care more about the brands that are believable. And so that's why they're more valuable to us. So what does that tell you? There's 12 ice cream shops in Nashville, and I'm assuming that it may be more. We care about the one that's more believable. The one that more, that's making the most money may not be the one that's the most believable and more connected to the city's DNA, right? It's not the it factor. It's not the it brand. So we talked about brand strategy, right? We talked about how that's important, how we don't want to commit to anything that is too long in uncertain times. We need to get on 90-day plans. At the same time, we don't want to be in a position where we're doing something and we're stopping in 2 weeks because we think it didn't work. No, you just pivot the tactic, but you keep the strategy. The strategy shows value. If you stick with something for when you're promoting your business or building your business or building your brand, and you stick with it, but pivot the tactic that you use, you're still going to get to your end goal, right? And so the tactics can change, but not the objective. Keeping the messaging consistent on all channels is a big part of strategies, especially since we're email marketing, we're on social media, we're creating video content, we're getting involved with community partnerships. If we're saying different things elsewhere, then nobody's able to repeat that, right? And though our brand may mean one thing, our strategy at this moment in time, due to the pandemic, these uncertain times, may be to build more community, get new customers who are maybe getting less support from the government on their needs, whatever our goals are, or get new funding, any of those things, right? But we keep the strategy the same. We keep it tight so that we're able to pivot it whenever need be. And we shouldn't pivot the whole strategy. We should pivot the tactic. And so that's going to be important. Make things measurable. We all know that. I mean, if we're all in the business, you cannot create goals that are unmeasurable. Some people call it SMART goals. We can get detailed, but at minimum, you need to be able to say, how measurable is this? And keeping a strategy, and I said this before, helps you get that brand credibility. People are now able to say, oh, I remember when she did that 21-day stretch plan. Everybody was doing the 21-day yoga stretch with her because she does that every year to help us learn how to stretch better. Not do yoga, but stretch, because her strategy was very specific. So that's just giving you examples on how people become more valuable and how their brands stay more valuable. And this is my little pretty gold egg. Another thing is branded content. We talked about that. I mean, we're all in the content game. Everybody, no matter what your business model is, you're in a content game, right? We're going to be building our brand credibility over the lifetime or the journey of our business. But branded content is every day. It's like, what is the thing we do as a part of fuel to our business? Branded content. And then what's even more relevant is that in a pandemic, hyperlocal strategies really got its shine. Why? Because everybody was like, let me hover in, let me not try to build in a whole nother market. Let me talk to my current customers, my loyal customers, my low-hanging fruit, and really get these folks back to me. Let me stay hyper local with my efforts so that I know that I'm grounded. And that was the initial reaction for everybody, retreat and confine, right? But hyper local has never been something that big companies didn't do. They just did it through market share. When Domino's had, I think in 2013, no less than 600, 700 stores, they made sure in each market that they did hyperlocal strategies. If that was giving pizza to the football team through their franchise and giving their franchisee new branding materials to make sure that they can see from the street even more. Those were hyperlocal strategies for a storefront. But for a business who is trying to continue to get people to know their product and in a pandemic, it's super important to really connect. the messaging. So what I would say here is that, look, stronger community through your messaging. Like, the word community may fall short on a lot of folks' ears, but community is wherever your consumer dwells, you need to dwell, right? So if your consumer is into gaming, then you need to find a way to get into the gaming podcast, and maybe have an interview on the gaming podcast, or offer free 30-minute consultations through that gaming podcast, or a platform, a social platform, or a Facebook group where these folks dwell. You need to be where they are. That's what I mean when I say community. You build stronger community through messaging. You have to have something to say. A lot of times we think just posting our logo and offering something is branded content. It is not. That is not branded content. Branded content is actually very intentional. Like, what are you saying? What's the conversation of the week with your potential customers? What's the conversation of the week with your community? If you don't know that before you start your week, or by Monday morning, you're not doing your business a service, especially in this social world we're living in. The hyperlocal piece was good because you heard the EC is hosting they're doing exactly what I'm talking about. They're hosting, bringing our members in and having our members record their message on why they're members of the EC and talk about Renew Nashville. We're saying, hey, come on, take a break from the social distancing and come have lunch with us. They're building that stronger community message right there, so that these people can take that content that they're helping them create and bring it back to other folks, as well as other people of the community, of the EC community. So they're using real local people to do that, not commercial people in a commercial house. Usually when we move faster, we'll pick people that maybe don't matter and, say, okay, hey, they're not the real folks. You can't do that anymore. Everybody wants to know the real, like, literally you should be able to say that person's name on your social media, not their full name, but say their first name. This is my friend Natasha. She's been coming in buying ice cream or cupcakes from us for the last 10 years. That's important to building community. And then authentic, that fades us right into authentic. It cannot be fake. In this cancel culture world, when you're doing branded content, you do not want it to be in any way a fib, a lie, untrue, or unclear, right? And so really make sure that you stay authentic, no matter how small the effort is or how big the effort is. Make sure that it's authentic so that it stays memorable. All right. And please, I will definitely take questions at the end. So as we continue to talk about these hyperlocal strategies, I got super excited when this happened because I believe they had done it before, but in the midst of the pandemic, we all felt sorry for the 2020 graduates. Who didn't? Oh, they're not going to have their graduation. We knew how important it was to graduate from high school. Shoot, I knew how important it was to graduate from college. That you miss your college graduation. Who wants to do that, right? Some people don't, but it's important to a lot of folks after you've done those years, right? And so I saw this effort by Krispy Kreme, and I love Krispy Kreme, but I was so enamored by the impact that they were doing across the United States with this. Basically, they told any kid who had just graduated, come in with your high school shirt on, or show us anything that shows you graduated this year, and guess what? You get a free dozen. Now, who wouldn't get their girlfriends and their friends together and say, we're all going to get our dozens and we're going to make it a donut party? And so they made, during the time when the world was completely lost, and this was back in April, May, and we're all trying to duck off and we're trying to, get our lives back, even in June, and made an effort to say, okay, listen, we can't forget about this one group of kids. And they pulled them through by putting a hot sign on, which is that thing that they drive and say, listen, we're going to run a campaign just for the high school graduates. Because guess what? Their mamas most likely brought them if they didn't have a car. They shared it with their family. It was a very strong community effort that went nationwide. It was hyper local because it happened at the local stores in each city, and it happened everywhere. This was huge. I mean, the legs on a campaign is always the most enticing thing to me as a marketer. I love seeing when there's multiple ways to do something. Some people say multiple ways to skin a cat. I don't like that term, but I like being able to see something move at all engines. And so this was one of those campaigns that I admired. It made them become even more a trusted business with that new Gen Z world. Think about it. These kids are just graduating. They're the Gen Z world, Gen X, all of those folks. If you were in college, literally now they're like, I'm down with Krispy Kreme. Yeah, I know we're not supposed to eat that much sugar, but I'm down with Krispy Kreme. plan to save the day with your business. In this uncertain times, at minimum, you want to be a good human. You want to be a good human. So find ways to save the day. The way I do that is by speaking, like for free. If somebody asks me at any given moment, like, hey, can we speak, Moncherie? Can you do this? That's how I feel like, especially for small businesses. I love doing that because that's me saving the day at all costs. So plan to save the day with your community that needs help. Find the avenue for that. And then partner with other community organizations to make the impact bigger. Krispy Kreme didn't need to partner with anybody. They're a full service corporation, right? But they maybe partnered with some media outlets to really get that out to all of the high schoolers. They were on radio, they were on TV, but they paid for that. But there may have been opportunities where they partnered with high schools to do so as well. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about some things you need to do. Community partnerships is a part of the sustainability of your brand, period. And yes, I'll be saying period the whole meeting. But then, at the end of the day, we all want that it factor. We've talked about what brand credit is. We talked about market share. We talked about the things we need to be doing in that hyper local strategies, community partnerships, branded content. But how do we get back to this it factor? Everybody knows Nashville's the it city. It's like, where do we move to Nashville? Like, why do we, let's move to Nashville. Nashville has that energy, right? A lot of that has come from the entertainment industry, but it also has come from the small businesses. Like, we know brands that are just a part of the DNA of Nashville, right? We can rattle them off: Frothy Monkey, Hattie B's, Prince's Hot Chicken, the Cupcake Collection. Name some other ones. Etley's, like, just from a restaurant standpoint, these are the places that, like, you go to Nashville, that's what you can find, right? And so what is your it factor? Like, you have to ask yourself, okay, it's unique identifiers, that favorite word we like to use in the business world, but it's really about what's the it factor? What makes you a part of this city so deeply that you'll be able to survive it when another pandemic comes, or in the next 10 years? Even if you're a tech brand, and you're a startup, that's the main thing you're thinking about. Like, how cool is your tech platform that it is going to be downloaded by millions, right? But how cool is it that it's being done in Nashville and not Silicon Valley, right? So finding the it factors on another level. It's really about putting yourself in the city's DNA, right? No matter if your brand and product is for the world and it's universal and it's not just for this market, it's still about tying yourself to this market's it factor to grow your own it factor. I guess we can call it clout chasing, right? And because what we do now, amid this pandemic, now every city is needing a little bit more of a boost to get people back coming and visiting from a tourism standpoint. But we were just blessed to be in the it city already. And so now we have an opportunity to tie ourselves to that. If you're not posting something about Nashville, but you're based in Nashville, no matter if your consumer is all over the world and it's an e-commerce platform, why not? Why not? You know what I mean? And if you have other key markets that are key to your consumer, meaning this is where a lot of your consumers come from, why wouldn't you tag yourself to that city and post events that's happening in that city, no matter if you're involved or not? Why? Because you're tying yourself to being a part of that city's DNA. Thus, if that city just so happens to be Nashville, is a it factor. So finding ways to do that is super important. We can't do it, catch us maybe 2 years before before this pandemic. I probably wouldn't have said, tie yourself to your city. Let's go big, let's go global. Everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to grow and grab as much as they can and not stay small. But it would be very odd to be headquarters in a city like Nashville and not actually participate in a city like Nashville, if that's socially, if you're not taking photos and sharing your good eats, or if you're just not talking about the great people that you know. That's a part of having an it factor. And I would do that across every market that you feel like is a key market for you and your market share. All right. I'm going to get ready for questions in a minute. There's a couple other things I like to share when it comes to, staying on point and really thriving around what your market offers you. You know what I mean? Like, you can create any brand all day long around getting a logo, a message, a voice, put it out there, put the product out there and watch it sell based on some posting. or you can build a brand that changes the world, or you can build a business that impacts its city. And that's more important right now. That's the businesses that are going to be sustainable. Again, I told you how important that word sustainable is, and how it will be as we get into this post-pandemic. Like, everything we should do should be around that. Who doesn't want their business to be sustainable? You say, Moncherie. Like, we all want to be sustainable, but sustainable means something different now. It's everything about, like, how tight are you to your people in the community and your consumers, but also how real and believable you are to stay around for the next 20 years. Because you don't want that to be a question. Let's get everything rebuilt now, renewed now, so that we can move forward and really be innovative and disruptive and all these other things. But right now, let's get renewed. Let's get renewed in some great stuff. And so that's what I have for you guys today. So I'm ready for questions. Any thoughts, questions? I know I got some folks on here. Let me open it up. Haley, do
Awesome.
I have the sound on?
Yeah, people should be able to unmute themselves, or you can chat in.
Let me see here. Hold on. Let's see. You said okay, so everybody should be able to unmute.
It looks like Constance, maybe. Constance, do you have a question?
Oh, I see chats.
I don't. I just unmuted myself. I don't have a question right
No
now.
worries. No worries. Thanks for tuning in.
I have a question. It's Debbie.
Hey,
Okay.
Debbie.
Hey, thank you for letting me be in the Renew program. It's like made my day.
Yay.
Mhm.
So I am a victim or an innovator out of COVID. And I created a platform for hospitality industry to get back up and running by using virtual site tours. My question really is because I'm using video so much, I'm looking to do that on social media, but I'm getting completely overwhelmed with social media because I'm building a website, doing social media, doing all the vlogs, doing everything. Would it be prudent for me to find someone to help me, or is this something you think I can kind of contain for now, just as in this startup bubble?
You know, I would tell you, actually, in our business, we're an agency, right? But I found with a lot of my clients that they immediately wanted, we needed to tell the story again, obviously, to be renewed, so people can say, okay, since we're all on the same playing field, let's tell the story again and better. And I needed to bring a videographer on the team, like, because I don't do that 24/7. I'm the writer, I'm the idea person. And so I was like, hey, I need to just be able to book you to get these things done at any given moment. And I met him through the EC, shout out to the EC. And we have been working literally every week in this pandemic since April. Because
Who is it? I'm dying to know.
Oh yeah, Amaliko, he's with Harvest and Digital.
True.
Yes. Harvest and Digital, and amazing. I got to show you some of the stuff, but he's done some amazing work. But also just being able to do like these 1-minute clips, right? Like we sat down one day with one client and we just put out about 17 1-minute clips. So then now they're set. And then if you have, if you're able to kind of pre-plot those out through a social media manager or yourself, you have it. But video is important. It becomes kind of cumbersome, but at the same time, you can get back to being authentic and just pop that cell phone up, have that conversation and say what needs to be said and just kind of get that going too. You don't need a videographer, but I was able to pull that off with a videographer for a lot of our clients.
Well, I'd love to hear about videographers if any of them are here, because we're looking for some, because I've been doing all the pre-production. I have a video background and I've edited, but I've got 2 kids at home too, and it's getting overwhelming. Trying to find the time to do all of it, and was just wondering, like, how do you compartmentalize doing everything as a CEO? I mean, like,
one thing I think that's the blessing of the pandemic that has been for me is that as much as you always say, okay, I can't do everything. Let me find somebody. And you find somebody and maybe they're not really committed to just your brand. I really stepped back and said, okay, especially as a CEO, we have a team, but how do I get people more committed to what I need them for? And what do I need to give them? And that beyond money to make sure that they're present when Mojo needs them. And shout out to Amaliko again, I literally said, hey, my guy, I have these many clients. we're going to be doing this much content over the next 6-7 months. I just need you for these, I plotted it out as much as possible. So as much as you can plan your strategy for what you're going to do in this 90-day window that I'm recommending, that will be helpful for somebody to really commit to you and be present whenever you need them. That's the benefit I found, that blessing in that pandemic.
I'll add one more thing for folks on this call. This is like a little bit jumping the gun, but we're about to announce the EC just built a video studio here. So it's an opportunity to record your own videos, and you can have someone like virtually like join in to be a producer essentially, but it's just having that like professional setup, and that should be announced actually early next week. And I do believe like that will be available for people to book. I'm not sure, so don't quote me. I'm not sure if there's like a small fee associated or if it's completely free or if it's like 1 hour free and then you pay, but definitely want to stay tuned for that. If you're looking to make video content on a budget, we're trying to help in that sense.
And I finished my presentation without finishing the last little piece that I wanted to add. So this is actually great that you asked that question. Nike is a good reference point for it. They are very simple. A lot of times as smaller brands, we like, what do I do? What should I do? When should I do it? They use a very simple social model that has been sustainable for them. They have something called Hero Hub Help. And this is it's around video. All of this is video. In the help space, they find out what their market is needing, i.e. the markets that they're focused on or like what their consumers needing. And they do how-to, videos, literally. And that's a big part of their social engagement on social media. So you can go and find that how-to. The hub piece is what I call regional. It's what you're going to post all the time. If that's inspiration, if that's awe and shock, if that is something that's repeatable, keeping in mind something that they can do over and over. If that's an interview series, let me think about, we have, thinking of a business. Oh, Urbanite.com. Urbanite, I got to shout out Urbanite. That's my people. Urbanite.com. They do great interviews, great content pieces. They have features around, feature stories like not just country music that becomes something that's a repeatable thing that we can see often, showing Nashville, what's different about Nashville, which is important because we all have the perception that we all play a guitar. We don't. So that repeatable thing that you can do around from a content standpoint on social media that engages your audience because they're expecting it. And then they do the big hero piece. That when I do video, you don't need to tell the story over and over. If you don't do it right through video the first time, then you've messed up. But if you do one good branded content video, that should be your hero piece. The one that tells your journey, inspires, basically tells everything you need, and it rests on your website or on YouTube or wherever you have it. But that plays one time, right? And that's your big inspiring piece that comes out. You share it everywhere. Maybe you have PR with it. But Hub is the thing that you do just to keep everybody engaged. So I missed that part on this, but that's something. Follow that Nike model. Make sure you follow their page, and you'll see the difference in their campaign. I think one of the hero pieces came with the Kaepernick piece that came out last year. That's one of their hero videos. But just keeping all of that in mind when you're structuring how you put out the content, and it helps you stay sustainable because you're not 24/7 looking for something to create and engage in conversation with. So sorry, I'm glad you triggered me because I was like, oh, I have another page. Any other questions? Let's see.
Yeah, what do folks have?
I don't know, Lord, I'm trying to, oh, there we go. Any other questions?
Come on, y'all. We've got like the most quiet group. We got to switch. So here's the thing is we have all these new people within Renew who are too shy. I'm like, gotta come here, you gotta join the EC, you gotta ask those questions. It's interesting, a lot of folks I've met with so far in Renew, as they've been joining, they said the hardest part is I'm afraid of asking like a dumb question. And I'm like,
that's what it is.
Honey, there's no dumb question here.
I mean, we're all in a part of, we're all at a place where we can just make mistakes, but not intentionally, like you have an opportunity to see if it works. You know what I mean? So don't come, especially at the EC. Like I said, I've been advisor there for a minute. This is a perfect time to see if it works. So you should never meet a person, especially when you got a mask on 6 feet away, and not wink and say, hey, how you doing? You know what I mean? Make time to connect with folks when you're around, but then use the platforms they got. These are folks are high technology. Like perfect time to have your morning tea with someone and ask those questions that maybe you feel like you're uncertain about.
Yeah. Candace,
Don't
did
waste
you have
your
a
time
question?
now so that you be ready in the future.
It's trying to articulate itself. Thank you. You know, I have been working on a resilience and empowerment method that I was taking around the city. I happen to be a Nashvilleian who does play the guitar.
That's okay. We need you. We need you here.
Okay. So I have this, this training method, and I lost all of my employments with COVID. I was in a bunch of different school enrichment programs and such, and I'm ready to rock. It's just that I have so many early steps, and I'm very overwhelmed by, do I work on updating my website first because I really wasn't in the market yet? I have to really, I'm working with course developers. Do I need to have how many modules do I need to have ready to go? I'm talking to videographers. Should I start putting stuff up? I have a little pitch video, thanks to Renew, that I just created. I just don't know the strategy of steps really. And, I've never been here before, but I've been in high product development. I have a lot of skills, and I'm just not sure, I just take it a day at a time, but I'd like to, maybe you could talk about that 90-day plan or something.
I can expand upon that for sure. One of the things I would say very directly to you is that online real estate is a must before you start moving, right? So making sure you have all your social media on every channel, especially if you're a course-oriented business model. You want to make sure you have a YouTube channel. Like, don't leave that out. Sometimes we get a Facebook and we think we've done it. No. So a big part of online real estate is a website. I don't want you out here trying to articulate and sell yourself without having a place for people to buy, right? And so I would say, yes, if part of your strategy is getting your online real estate alive, the good thing is you're going into the season where everybody's going to be like, okay, let me decide how I'm going to change my life. December, January, like, what am I going to do new post-pandemic amid this world change? And you have an opportunity to really market them heavy in Q1 2021. So use this window. My recommendation, if I was speaking with you, use this window to build up your online real estate. And that's through that engagement, sustainable engagement, maybe having teaching without teaching, you know what I mean? Giving tips on social media, spend time there, building friends, building community like we discussed earlier, having community partnerships, speaking in your realm so that you have content to put out while you're building the website. And then when you're ready to sell come January or February, then you have a whole campaign to push through, and you actually have an audience to actually speak to. You know, the worst thing in the world is try to just post out and buy Facebook ads and you have not built community. Like, it's just the worst thing in the world. I moved here 8 years ago. I knew one girl who I went to high school with and hadn't seen her since high school. I built a Facebook group. Let me just tell you, I built a Facebook group because I was an entrepreneur or wanting to be a bigger small business. And it was for women who were doing the same thing, kindred spirits, who was also potentially my customer. So maybe you don't have to be in Facebook group. They got, I think Clark mentioned one meeting we were on, that meetings is still thriving, even though folks are not meeting in person, but meetings.com is still thriving. So get on all of those platforms and have some type of community, one spot that you drive them back to. That may be your Facebook group, that may be your website. But yeah, that's a strategy. You know what I mean? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Haley.
I'm gonna start calling names. Hold on, let me call.
Hey, Moncherie, I had a question.
Okay, good.
You mentioned social media, and so I had a question. Since now with a lot of the big players, they have changed their algorithms and they change them so frequently. And then it becomes very unreliable in regards to your engagement and how you're pushing your brand. So how much would you suggest investing in social media for your business in comparison to your overall kind of integrated approach? Because I would love to know, like, what do you think that investment should look like? Because right now, I don't feel it should all be in social media because they will change it up on you like in
In a
days.
minute. It's probably about to change now. We don't even know.
Right.
That's a great question, Ashley. Here's what I would say. As much as I recommend those top 4 brand moves, because you got to have the optics, you got to have presence, it needs to be at people's fingertips. And that's why social media is important. Amid the ever-changing algorithms, email marketing is also amazing. The thing about it is I can't promote a person creating or renewing their strategy when they don't have emails, right? And so the way you get your emails is through your social media campaign. So I think there's an equal share there. So if you wanted to say, 40%, 40%, you know what I mean? Through email marketing or community building, because you're emailing everything you're doing out. If you're selling your classes, promoting an event, sending out a story, I think really getting consistent with that email box, because guess what? Folks are still clicking, they're still engaging. It's still something that they're paying attention to. We all have gotten a Renew Nashville emails, right? We've all clicked on those. We are engaging with that, going to the website. It made me remember to go and update my EC advisor profile the other day. And I was like, oh, okay, let me, those things it makes me still stay a part of the EC, even though I haven't been present, right? So I would say divide it up a little bit, because everything needs to be integrated. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying social media, social media, social media. I'm saying social media is the optics of brand credibility. And it's definitely when you're trying to show that you have a market, you need to be at the fingertips, and the fingertips is social media. But I would say email marketing. And in this world, we care about information, so it's not information overload. It's like, oh, what's this new thing? So people like you, Ashley, who have stories to tell, stories are important. You can never tell your story too much. There's always angles to it, multiple narratives. I think that Candace mentioned she has a robust background and can do, product development. There's an article written on product development, on how she's developing her own product. A seasoned industry vet is creating her own product on a digital platform. She's getting out of the physical. So there's so much there. We can never have too much content. So that's my answer. A three strong approach at minimum, Ashley.
Thank you.
One thing I'll add just for folks, email marketing, we have a deal with HubSpot that you get 90% off your first year. And if you want to get set up with that, let me know. That's on the member portal. And 2, if anyone was on the workshop last week, I remember the big takeaway it was about video marketing, Moncherie, and he shared about there's this tool, and I cannot remember the name. It was new though, that allows you to go live on every platform on social media.
Oh.
And now LinkedIn allows you to go live. You just have to apply, but so it's like kind of hidden. So just as like some quick hot tips.
Yeah, LinkedIn's
Restream. It's called Restream.
Yeah,
Restream. Thank
I
you.
used it on a site tour of a property. I should turn my thing on here, and I kept losing, and I missed half of it, and had to go back and record it and resend it. So just be careful with ones like that, because I think it's the amount of power that you can have out of whatever you're shooting with, and especially like in hotels, if you're like in an elevator, you have trouble reconnecting. So if you're like in one spot with good Wi-Fi, that stuff is great. Just be careful trying to use Restream and all of those on like 5 different platforms moving around.
Totally. Oh no, that's scary.
Hey, I learned a good lesson though. Everything I do, I'm learning. So.
Yeah, and then you can share it with us. I love it. Thanks, Debbie. Tanisha, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you so much. Moncherie, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. I'm a fellow New Orleanian, so
okay, yes.
My question is, I have a serious aversion to social media, like nail biting kind of aversion to social media. I have started to try to get into it a little bit more, but something totally unrelated with my gardening and everything. But I have a transportation planning business right now.
Okay.
And with that, do I need to be on every platform? As professional service organization, do I have to be on Facebook, or do I have to be on, or I'm saying have to, but is it really necessary to be on all of the platforms?
No, I'll tell you two things. I do recommend, because when you're ready to get on all, to go ahead and get your online real estate. Own it already. You don't have to be there. It doesn't need to be live. So there's a couple like Facebook. I love them for that. You can go ahead and build a whole Facebook page and have it hidden for a period of time until you're ready. Some of these other platforms don't allow, but it's not shunned upon to see just the logo posted there and the website there, even though there's no activity happening, right? But I will say, you said logistics, right?
It's planning, transportation planning.
More transportation.
Mhm.
Depending on if it's B2B or a consumer, obviously B2B, you may want to put yourself in the LinkedIn space, just for professional purposes, so that folks of all walks of life know you, especially the folks that you're trying to reach. And I love the new LinkedIn feature that Haley mentioned around stories, because maybe when you guys are moving, you just capture a quick video. Doesn't have to be you. You know what I mean? It's the activity that's happening. We love how it works. That's why that show was on TV for so long. How things work. I still capture and I'm like, oh, that's how they make that? Oh,
I
okay.
love that.
I love stuff like that, like how it works. We love challenges. And so what you're answering as a human is, what's the challenge to that? Okay. So you can have a company that they work and they book, limousines for celebrities 24/7. Like that's, people want to see that, you know what I mean? Even if they're just seeing the hand. There's a young man on TikTok that has shouted to, in the last 3 months, I'm a big TikTok person, just going up to the Rodeo Drive and asking the not celebrities, regular human beings who are in nice cars, hey man, what do you do for a living? And that has become a TV show basically on TikTok. And brands are now pulling up and having their CEOs pull up and give this young man a Rolex, because they're a Rolex company. Why? Because he has 23 million people in 5 months that are watching him on asking a simple question. What do you do for a living? Why are you driving that Maserati? How did you get the Maserati or whatever? And that person says, oh, I'm an accountant or I'm in software. And that's it. That's it. Realize that we live in the minute, right? I actually have a life mantra that I say, love your minutes, but like we live in the minute. So if you live in a minute, don't let social media make you feel like you need to make a movie. You are not making a movie. It is real simple. You can get jazzy with it, especially from New Orleans. Like just do a little visual, the cars getting washed, the trucks getting washed. You know what I mean? And just post getting ready for another work week. That's very simple, but do it with video. So yeah, I don't know about the restream component of it, but I like video in the content of where your world is. So I would rather the stories, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Stories on LinkedIn for you. So I would say stay there. I also would say, go ahead and you have to have a Facebook page. It's just like having a website. And then I'm just a fan of Instagram because of its e-commerce and its sociability. So I would say, go ahead and just put a few tiles up, maybe six or so, that at minimum, it describes your brand. But, as you get stuff, when you do get pictures, maybe that's your receipts. You see, so Facebook is your like website sister. Instagram is your receipts, where you just say, we did this, right? And then LinkedIn is where you go live and you kind of post your videos. That's kind of a very simple strategy that doesn't overwhelm. You can plot it out and be ready from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem. Glad I was able to help. Come on, y'all. Let's see I'm gonna start calling folks. I got 4 minutes, so I got 4 minutes to call everybody on here. Haley.
I wanted to say something to Tanisha, because there's a lot of free things that you can dabble in also to make them a little more upscale. There's Canva. You can always take like little videos you do and like brand around it. That's what I do, like my colors and stuff. So it's always, everything I always post is very attached to my color scheme. And another cool thing is I use Hootsuite, the free version. You only have 3 platforms, but like if I just need to kind of get things on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn all at once, like literally like a promo for my next vlog, it's just so easy to kind of get it all done in one place. And they're all free if you want to, unless you want to pay for it or take the 30-day, upscale ones. That's what I do. I take all free things and I try them out. And it is scary. Believe me, I feel like I'm doing social media all day long. So
Right.
it is I get it. So, but there's ways to kind of dabble in it. So
Thank you for that. That is helpful. And just keep it authentic. I mean, it's cool to brand it. I think that's always great because you want people to remember the brand. But people love the authentic nature of just you or the work.
Can I say something too to Tanisha, please?
Yeah,
In terms
This
of
is a
the
woman's empowerment group at this
I
point.
know. This is
really in
See?
terms
5 right here.
in terms of the overwhelm of social media and the aversion, been there. Okay, had an international career in music, and that it took a while for me to get through it. My suggestion is to just take one, platform at a time, just for a little bit, and just feel your way into it. Make a few friends, get with it and start to dig it. And then move to another one, and gradually it becomes part of your day. I hope that's helpful.
There's a happy medium between both of those, what Candace said, as well as Debbie. I love that.
Any final questions? Well, awesome. I guess we'll wrap up if everyone's okay with that.
Thank
You know
you.
Any
Awesome.
nervous people who are like, oh, wait, I do have a question.
Is there a way to get in touch with Monshera?
Yes,
Sure.
she is on the advisor platform.
Yes.
Rockin'. Okay, great.
She is plugged into the EC. She is an awesome resource. Don't overwhelm her though, because she is busy.
Sure.
But she is on. If you look, go to the website and then get onto the platform, you can find her profile.
Yes, I have 2 per week open. So every week I do 2, and they're usually
Wow.
they're booked for this week already. So just, yeah, definitely reach
You're one
out.
of the most popular people.
I'll do
Honestly.
my homework before I reach out.
There you go, no problem. Well, I appreciate the questions, and this was awesome. I hope it was helpful, and it
Very.
kind of gave you some nuts and bolts to everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Bye.
Come to
Thank you.
lunch
Bye.
tomorrow.
Bye. I
Be in my
enjoyed everything. Great
video.
information.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.